Most people get a second chance at life and use it to win the lottery, marry a supermodel, or build a business empire. Me? I woke up 5 years in the past, bound by heavy rope, with my estranged stepbrother preparing to paddle my ass. You still want a cigarette? I strained against the silk ties binding my wrists to the mahogany headboard, my neck craning back to glare at him. The scent of burnt cedarwood and ozone, his pheromones, was so thick in the room it made my omega instincts tremble, but my brain was still running on pure, unadulterated rage. I spat, my voice cracking. I'll smoke whatever the hell I want, Carl. Carl chuckled. It was a low, dark sound that vibrated in his chest. He tossed the wooden ruler onto the bedside table with a clatter that echoed in the silence of the villa. Then, I heard the distinct, metallic clink of a belt buckle being undone. Fine, he murmured, his eyes dark and unreadable. Then I'll do what I have to do. I had been reborn for exactly 2 hours. And for those 2 hours, I had been bagged, dragged, and kidnapped by my stepbrother, a man I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Carl, you son of a bitch. I screamed, trashing on the bed. Let me go right now? Do you know who I am? I'm your older brother. Stepbrother, he corrected calmly. I felt the prick of a needle in my neck before I could scream again. A sedative. My limbs turned into water, heaviness dragging my eyelids down. I could only lie there, limp and pathetic, as he stripped off my street clothes and dressed me in soft, silk pajamas. Carl stood 6'3", a prime alpha in his physical prime. He knelt on one knee before me, a basin of warm water beside him. He dipped a washcloth in, wrung it out, and began to wipe my feet. His hands were large, calloused, and terrifyingly gentle. I tried to jerk my foot away, but his grip tightened just enough to remind me of the power disparity between us. Stop playing deaf and dumb. I slurred, the drugs making my tongue feel thick. What is your endgame here? You think you can just kidnap me? I have a life. I have people. You have no one, Sean, he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. He dried my toes with a fluffy white towel. And until you learn how to take care of yourself, you aren't going anywhere. I take care of myself just fine. I snapped, though it came out as a whisper. Carl paused. His hand was still wrapped around my ankle. He looked up, and for a second, I saw a flash of red in his eyes, the sign of an alpha on the edge of control. Do you, he asked softly. In the last timeline, you died at 30 on a rainy racetrack. I saw the photos, Sean. Every bone in your body was shattered. Is that taking care of yourself? A chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning shot down my spine. I remembered that pain. The screech of tires, the crunch of metal, the absolute, crushing despair as the steering column crushed my chest. That has nothing to do with you. I stammered, trying to mask my fear with bravado. Who are you to me? You're nothing. Just stay away from me. Carl stood up abruptly. The shadow he cast swallowed me whole. He loomed over the bed, his presence suffocating. First rule, he said, leaning down until his nose was an inch from mine. No more swearing. I let out a cold, incredulous laugh. Fuck YMPH. His hand clamped over my jaw, squeezing my cheeks together. His thumb pressed against my lip, forcing my mouth open. 2 of his fingers slipped inside, pressing down on my tongue. It was invasive, dominant, and humiliating. I gagged, my eyes watering, trying to bite down, but he knew exactly where to press to keep my jaw locked open. Saliva pooled and spilled down my chin. Second rule, he whispered, his voice trembling slightly as he stared into my tear-filled eyes. Don't look at me like I'm your enemy. It breaks my heart. He pulled his hand away, wiping the saliva on my pajama top, and then covered my eyes with his palm. His hand was shaking. Sleep, Sean, he commanded. We're going to be here a while. Life with a kidnapper is surprisingly domestic when that kidnapper is obsessed with you. It had been 3 weeks. The windows were reinforced glass. The doors were deadbolt. The internet was disconnected. My phone had been replaced with a tablet that only had pre-downloaded games and movies. I woke up to the smell of bacon and freshly brewed coffee. I groaned, rolling over in the massive king-sized bed. Morning, Carl said. He was standing in the doorway, wearing a ridiculous pink apron over his black turtleneck. Breakfast is ready. I glared at him through narrowed eyes, snorting derisively to show my displeasure. I marched into the bathroom. The toothpaste was already squeezed onto my brush. The water in the cup was warm. The face towel was damp and steaming. I hated it. I hated how easy it was to slip into this routine. I walked out, sat at the small table he'd set up in the bedroom, and opened my mouth. He fed me a forkful of eggs like I was a toddler. I have hands, I mumbled, chewing. I like doing it, he replied simply. You're a freak, I said. A control freak alpha with a brother complex. Eat your toast, Sean. I chewed angrily. Carl, I need a cigarette. My skin feels like it's crawling. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Carl's expression went from mild to glacial. No, just one, I pleaded, leaning forward. I'm shaking. Look at my hands. No, I hate you, I hissed. I grabbed his hand, the one holding the fork, and bit down on the fleshy part between his thumb and forefinger. I bit hard, tasting copper. He didn't flinch. He didn't pull away. He just watched me, his eyes darkening, a strange smile touching the corners of his lips. When I finally let go, panting, there were deep, bleeding indentations in his skin. He lifted his hand, inspecting the wound, then reached out and rubbed my sore jaw with his other hand. Better? He asked gently. I stared at him, horrified. You really are sick. Maybe, he agreed. But you're not smoking. I flopped back onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. What do you want, Carl? Dad shares? Is that it? You're keeping me here to force me to sign over the inheritance. He paused while clearing the plates. Is that what you think? What else could it be? I shot back. We aren't friends. We aren't family. We haven't spoken since I moved out. Why else would you lock me up? He didn't answer. He just walked out, the heavy lock clicking shut behind him. My boredom eventually turned into malice. If he wanted to play house, I was going to be the worst guest imaginable. Carl, I screamed at the top of my lungs. Carl, get in here. The door flew open seconds later. He was breathless, panic in his eyes. What? What happened? Are you hurt? My toenails are too long, I said, pointing at my foot. Cut them. He blinked, his chest heaving as he realized there was no emergency. He let out a long sigh, the tension leaving his shoulders. He walked over to the closet, grabbed the grooming kit, and sat on the edge of the bed. I shoved my foot into his lap. Do a good job. If you nick me, I'll kick you in the face. He took my foot in his hands. His palms were hot. The contrast with my cold skin sent a jolt through me. He began to clip, his focus intense, as if he were performing surgery. I watched the top of his head. He had great hair. Thick, dark. He was handsome, objectively. High cheekbones, a sharp jawline that could cut glass. It was a waste that he was my stepbrother. I wiggled my toes against his chest, sliding my foot up to rest near his collarbone. I felt his breath hitch. Hey, I taunted. You're skinny. But I guess some omegas like that lean look. Have you knotted anyone yet, little brother? Carl froze. The clippers stilled in his hand. A flush crept up his neck, turning his ears red. Stop it, he rasped, his voice dropping an octave. Stop what? I pushed my heel against his pectoral muscle. Asking about your love life? Or is it that you don't have one because you're too busy stalking me? Sean, he warned, looking up. His eyes were dilated. Don't push me. Or what? I laughed. You'll tie me up again? Go ahead. I'm bored. He stared at me for a long moment, the air thick with unsaid things. Then, he looked back down at my foot and resumed clipping, his movements jerky. You're a brat, he muttered. And you're a kidnapper, I retorted. I think you win the villain award. When he finished, he packed up the kit and stood. Dinner is in an hour. I made salted egg yolk wings. Your favorite. I watched him leave, the insult dying on my tongue. Salted egg yolk wings took hours to prepare. Hey, I called out before the door closed. He stopped. Yes. Why? I asked, my voice quieter. Just. Why? We could just talk. You could let me go. I won't press charges. He looked back at me, his expression unreadable. Wash your hands, Sean. Dinner's almost ready. The memories of the past timelines started to bleed into my dreams. I remembered the day my mother died. The ambulance lights, the screaming. I remembered my father bringing Linda home a month later. Linda, with her perfect smile and her cold, dead eyes. And her son, Carl. I remembered how I treated him. I was awful. I pushed him, mocked him, told everyone he was the son of a whore. But I also remembered the other moments. When I went north for college, Carl followed me. When I got into a bar fight, Carl jumped in front of a broken bottle for me. When my father beat me with a golf club for crashing his car, Carl threw himself over my body and took the blows in silence. He's manipulating you, my cousin Zach had told me back then. He's playing the long game. The innocent act? It's to get your guard down so he can steal your inheritance. I had believed Zach. I had believed my father when he said Carl was greedy. But lying in this bed, staring at the ceiling, I started to wonder. One afternoon, Carl forgot to lock his study. I crept in, heart pounding, looking for a weapon or a phone. In the corner, there was a massive safe. I tried my birthday. 09-11. Click. The green light flashed. My breath hitched. I pulled the heavy door open. Inside, there were no stacks of cash, no secret documents, no stolen jewelry. There was a teddy bear. It was old, missing an eye, the fur matted and gray. I recognized it immediately. It was the bear I had won at a carnival when I was 16. I had thrown it in the trash when I saw Carl looking at it, telling him he wasn't allowed to touch my things. He had dug it out of the trash. He had kept it for 10 years. I reached out, touching the worn fabric. Beneath the bear was a stack of Polaroids. I picked them up. They were all of me. Me sleeping in the library at college. Me playing basketball. Me laughing with friends. Photos taken from a distance. You found it. I jumped, spinning around. Carl was leaning against the doorframe, a bottle of whiskey in his hand. He looked disheveled, his tie loose, his eyes glassy. He was drunk. You? I held up the photo. You stalker. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. He stumbled into the room and collapsed onto the leather sofa. Guilty. I walked over to him, my fear replaced by a strange, aching confusion. Carl. This bear. Why do you have it? He looked up at me, his eyes unfocused. He reached out, grabbing my hand and interlacing our fingers. His palm was calloused and warm. Because it's yours, he slurred. Everything of yours. I want it. That's creepy. I whispered, but I didn't pull my hand away. He pulled my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles. Brother. Sean. I love you. I froze. I love you, he repeated, closing his eyes. I wish you didn't hate me. It wasn't the first time I'd heard it. When he was 19, he blew out his candles and said, I wish my brother would love me forever. I had laughed and rubbed his head, mocking him. Now, looking at this powerful alpha reduced to a weeping drunk on a sofa, my heart twisted. I pulled my hand away gently. You're drunk, Carl. I'm going to bed. I walked out of the study. The front door was unlocked. I could leave. I could run right now. I stepped out onto the porch. The night air was cool. I looked at the garden. My breath caught in my throat. Roses. Thousands of them. Carl was severely allergic to pollen. In college, I had pranked him. I locked him in a greenhouse and told him I'd only forgive him if he found the one yellow rose hidden among the red ones. There was no yellow rose. He had searched for hours, coming out covered in hives, his throat closing up. Now, he had planted a sea of roses in his own garden. Why? I whispered to the empty night. You idiot. You're going to kill yourself. I walked down the path. The scent was overwhelming. Every single rose bush was tended to perfection. He did this for me. He risked anaphylactic shock just to grow the flowers I liked. I stood there for a long time. The anger that had fueled me for 2 lifetimes began to crack. Underneath it, there was just guilt and something else. Something warm and terrifying. I turned around and walked back into the house. I found Carl passed out on the sofa. I grabbed a blanket and threw it over him. 1 month, I whispered, looking at his sleeping face. I'll give you 1 month. I'll stop fighting. I'll be the brother you wanted. And then I'm gone. The dynamic shifted. I stopped biting. I stopped screaming. Do you want to watch a movie? I asked the next evening. Carl looked at me like I had grown a second head. You want to watch a movie? With me? Yes. Pick something scary. I know you hate them. He smiled, a genuine, blinding smile that made his dimples pop. Okay. We sat on the couch. When the jump scare happened, he grabbed my arm, burying his face in my shoulder. It's just a guy in a mask, Carl. I laughed, poking his ribs. It's terrifying, he muffled into my shirt. Don't leave me. I'm right here. We adopted a stray cat. A scruffy orange thing I named Fluff because it shed everywhere. Carl, the neat freak, followed it around with a lint roller, sneezing, but he never complained. Look, Sean. he said one day, holding the cat up like Simba. He has your eyes. Judgmental. Put the cat down, you idiot. We were happy. It was a fake, fragile happiness, built on an expiration date, but it was real to him. And God help me, it was starting to feel real to me too. Then came the phone call. I was in the kitchen, making tea, when I heard Carl's voice from the study. He must have thought I was in the garden. Yes, Mother. I have the papers. I froze. Mother. Linda. I crept closer to the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. He trusts me now, Carl said, his voice cold and calculating. Completely. He's docile. I clutched the door frame, my knuckles turning white. Don't worry, Carl continued. Once I get the signature on the transfer, we can proceed with the next step. No, I haven't told him about the mental institution yet. My blood turned to ice. Yes, Carl laughed softly. We'll commit him. He's unstable. It'll be easy. And then we can finally deal with his mother's grave. Dig her up, scatter the ashes. Just like you wanted. I couldn't breathe. The world spun. It was all a lie. The teddy bear. The roses. The breakfast. The fear of horror movies. He was a monster. He was Linda's son, through and through. They were going to lock me up. They were going to desecrate my mother's grave. I backed away silently, tears streaming down my face. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until my stomach was empty. I have to kill him, I thought, staring at my pale reflection. Before he kills me. That night, I waited until his breathing evened out. I reached under my pillow and pulled out the fruit knife I had stolen from the kitchen. My hand was shaking violently. I straddled his waist. He was sleeping on his back, his neck exposed. One slice. That's all it would take. I raised the knife. I looked at his face. The face that had looked at me with such adoration over the birthday cake yesterday. Do it, a voice screamed in my head. He's going to destroy you. I can't, another voice whispered. I love him. The hesitation cost me. Carl's eyes flew open. In a blur of motion, he grabbed my wrist. He twisted. The knife clattered to the floor. He flipped us over, pinning me to the mattress, his body heavy and hard on top of mine. Get off me. I screamed, thrashing. You psycho. You liar. I heard you. I heard everything. Sean, stop. You're going to put me in an asylum? You're going to dig up my mom. I sobbed, spitting in his face. Do it then. Kill me now. Because if you don't, I swear to God, I will burn this house down with you inside. He pinned my wrists above my head with one hand. He was breathing hard, his scent spiking, burnt wood and distress. You listened, he said, his voice surprisingly calm. But you didn't listen to the end, did you? You never listened to the end. I heard enough. You heard what I wanted her to hear, he roared, shaking me. I went still, blinking through my tears. What? He released my wrists and sat back on his heels, running a hand through his hair. He looked exhausted. Get dressed, he said quietly. We're going to the lawyer's office. The lawyer's office was sterile and smelled of old paper. I sat in the chair, my arms crossed, refusing to look at Carl. Here is the final draft, Mr. Sean, the lawyer said, sliding a thick document toward Carl. Carl didn't sign it. He slid it toward me. Read it, Carl commanded. I looked down. Irrevocable transfer of assets. I scanned the legalese. My eyes widened. Transfer, Shun Fong, Carl. Transferee, Shun Hung, Sean. What is this? I whispered. Linda, my mother. She's smart, Carl said, staring out the window. She spent 20 years siphoning assets from your father. The only way to get them back was to make her think I was on her side. I had to be the perfect son, the ruthless heir. He turned to look at me. She transferred everything to me yesterday. She thinks we're pooling our resources to destroy you. He tapped the paper. This document transfers everything. Her money, my money, your father's company, to you. All of it. My mouth fell open. But, the asylum? My mom's grave. She needed to believe I hated you, Carl said. If she suspected for 1 second that I cared about you, she would have destroyed the assets or hurt you directly. I had to play the part. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out another envelope. He tossed it onto the table. And this, he said, is a restraining order against Linda Chun, and a contract for a private security team to guard your mother's grave 24/7. I looked from the papers to him. You're giving me everything. I don't want the money, Sean, he said tiredly. I never did. I just wanted to protect you. He stood up and buttoned his jacket. Sign the papers. The lawyer will handle the rest. You're free. Linda is ruined. You win. Where are you going? I asked, panic rising in my chest. Away, he said. He didn't look back. I promised I'd let you go when it was over. It's over. He vanished. It was like he never existed. His phone was disconnected. The villa was empty. I was rich. Filthy rich. Linda had a stroke when she found out she was destitute. She was rotting in a state-funded nursing home, screaming my name at the walls. I had won. I had my revenge. I had the money. And I was miserable. I spent my days wandering the empty villa, hugging the ugly teddy bear, smelling his old shirts. The scent of burnt cedar wood was fading, and with it, my sanity. You look like a widow, Zach said, sliding a drink toward me. We were at a bar. The music was too loud, the lights too bright. Shut up, I muttered, downing the whiskey. He really left, huh? Zach shook his head. I didn't think he had it in him. Thought he was too obsessed. He's an idiot, I slurred. A noble, self-sacrificing idiot. So go find him. I can't. I slammed the glass down. He blocked me. He doesn't want to be found. I stumbled out of the bar, the world tilting. It was raining. Just like the night I died in my past life. I walked down the street, ignoring the honking cars. My clothes were soaked. I was cold. Maybe if I die again, I thought hazily, I can restart again. And this time, I won't be so mean to him. Sean, the voice cut through the rain. I stopped. A figure was running toward me, holding a black umbrella. He looked older, tired. He was wearing a cheap convenience store vest. Carl. He dropped the umbrella when he saw me. He grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. What are you doing? Get out of the road. Do you want to die? I looked up at him, raindrops blurring my vision. You left me. I set you free, he yelled, his voice cracking. That's what you wanted. I didn't want this. I shoved him. I didn't want the money. I wanted you. He froze. The rain plastered his hair to his forehead. What? I love you, you stupid alpha. I screamed. I love you. Why did you leave me alone with the cat? He hates me. He only likes you. Carl stared at me, his chest heaving. Then, without a word, he grabbed the back of my neck and crashed his lips onto mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was desperate, wet, and tasted like rain and cheap cigarettes. I kissed him back with everything I had, wrapping my arms around his neck, clinging to him like a lifeline. Say it again, he murmured against my lips. The cat hates me, I sobbed. The other part. I love you. He hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. I'm never letting you go again. Even if you beg. Good. I whispered into his neck, inhaling the scent of cedarwood. It was faint, but it was there. Don't. We moved back into the villa. Carl quit his convenience store job and started studying to be a vet. He said he liked animals more than people. I agreed. Domestic life was intense. Eat your broccoli, Carl said, placing a green mountain on my plate. I'm not 5, I complained. You need the vitamins. Your immune system is trash. I rolled my eyes, but I ate the broccoli. That night, things heated up. We were in the bedroom, the air thick with pheromones. He kissed his way down my neck, his hands roaming over my body. Sean, he groaned. You smell so good. Shut up and take me. I panted, pulling at his shirt. He paused, looking at me with a strange expression. Wait. You wanna bottom? I blinked. Yeah? I'm the omega. You're the alpha. Isn't that how biology works? He smirked, a wicked, predatory glint in his eyes. Oh, brother. You have no idea what you just signed up for. Let's just say, I couldn't walk straight for 3 days. The next morning, I was lying in bed, sore and exhausted, while Carl flitted around the room like a happy housewife, fluffing pillows and bringing me water. Are you comfortable? Do you need a new ice pack? How about some cake? I grabbed a pillow and threw it at his face. Stop smiling. It's annoying. He caught the pillow, his grin widening. I can't help it. I have everything I ever wanted. A week later, there was a banging on the front door. Sean, open this door. I know you're in there. It was Linda. She had escaped the nursing home. We ignored her. We were on the couch, tangled together, watching a documentary about penguins. She's persistent, Carl noted, stroking my hair. She'll tire herself out, I said. You stole my son. Linda shrieked from outside. You seducer. You pervert. You'll rot in hell. Carl stiffened. I felt a low growl rumble in his chest. I placed a hand on his chest. Let me handle it. I walked to the door and flung it open. Linda looked like a wraith. Her hair was wild, her hospital gown stained. You, she hissed. You ruined everything. No, Linda, I said calmly. You ruined everything. You abused your son. You tried to rob my father. You desecrated my mother's memory. You did this to yourself. He loves me, she screamed. He's my son. He's my alpha. I corrected, flashing the fresh mating mark on my neck. Her eyes widened in horror. Disgusting. Is it? I leaned against the doorframe. You know, in my last life, I died young. And Carl. He never visited my grave. Not once. Linda looked confused. What are you talking about? You're crazy. I looked back at Carl, who was standing behind me, his hand resting protectively on my waist. Why didn't you visit me? I asked him, ignoring her. Carl shrugged. Because I was dead too, Sean. I drove my car off a bridge the day after your funeral. Silence stretched out. Linda gasped, taking a step back. I looked at him, my heart breaking all over again. Oh, yeah, he said softly. A world without you wasn't worth living in. He stepped forward and slammed the door in his mother's face. He locked the deadbolt. Come back to bed, he said, pulling me into his arms. The penguins are getting to the good part. I buried my face in his chest, listening to his strong, steady heartbeat. Okay, I said. But no more dying. Deal? He whispered, kissing the top of my head. Forever. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I believed him.